What's the problem here?
Well, the big problem is CBP and the United States Postal Service are still living in a previous decade. Let's just say that.
All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Decoding Cross-Border Ecommerce podcast. And this week in tariffs, right?
They're terrific. That wasn't even the joke of the day.
Wasn't? Okay, so what is?
Well, we're talking about all these nations, fighting and quarreling. And it makes me think of a great leader back in the day, great king. But it was interesting. He was only 12 inches tall. He wasn't a very good king, but he was a great ruler.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, okay, last time we met, we knew that there were some changes coming with the tariffs again, and things have happened. So, Aaron, give us an update.
Okay, so last time we discussed how Canada and Mexico were coming out the U.S. was coming out with extra tariffs on Canadian and Mexican-made goods. 25% was the number. And we were speculating on what's going to happen.
Was it an additional 10% on top of for China? Is that?
I don't even remember. Did we discuss that last time, or is that new since then?
I think we did discuss that last time.
Okay,
yeah,
that happened. That came out as well.
Right.
So these all went into effect today. But the one part we were worried about was, what about the de minimis for the Canada and Mexican-made goods? Because we paused changing it for China, but there wasn't anything for Canada and Mexico. Someone was listening to our podcast. I'm sure that's why. But,
yeah.
They came out Sunday with a couple executive orders to put the pause on that as well, simply because we're not ready.
All right, let's talk. So before we dive in more, why aren't we ready? Right? Like what we had a Sheen order that we paid for, and DHL sent us an invoice. Mm-hmm. We paid it, and so the duty was paid. Like what's the problem here?
Well, the big problem is CBP and the United States Postal Service are still living in a previous decade. Let's just say that, not the current one.
Yeah, I mean, everything got just piled up at the ports of entry. Well, I mean, at the airports, right? So
yeah, I mean, they didn't have a need to be ready.
No, they don't have the mechanisms.
Everything was
in
just
place.
flowing in. They have an $800 de minimis. That it was no big deal. Now there was stuff on the horizon they were kind of worried about, but they just kind of procrastinated, and then this all hits.
So this is what the executive order said. It said, essentially, the de minimis treatment will cease to be available for such otherwise eligible covered articles upon notification by the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to the President, that adequate systems are in place to fully and expeditiously process and collect tariff revenue. So,
and by the way, he was not even confirmed and put in place until after that original pause. So he's just barely getting into office, starting to make things happen.
So right now they've got to get the systems in place to be able to manage this. Mm-hmm. So if the express carriers, they're ready, right? Mm-hmm. The UPS, FedEx, DHLs, they're ready for the stuff coming in. I mean, ready's relative, right? Like they could handle it. Obviously the post. So why do you think that they just paused the de minimis completely instead of just letting it go through, like giving a kind of a reprieve for the postal stuff in the meantime?
Okay, so you got, there's the fiscal side of this, but there's security side of this is a big one. And the postal channel is, pause, back up for a second. Let me start over on explaining that. So human behavior is going to kind of change, right?
Incentive
if you've got a channel that can go completely free with very little scrutiny versus another one that's going to have high tariffs charged on it along with processing and collection fees, which one are you going to choose?
Yeah. Everything's going to go through the post. There's a lot of saving. Could be a lot of savings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now everything's paused for everyone then, until the systems are in place.
Yep.
We don't know when that's going to be.
Whenever Howard says it is.
All right. Okay, so Howard, let us know. Now, that's going to be massively impactful to any shipments coming into the United States. It could be a U.S. retailer that's shipping into the U.S. from a foreign destination, and it could be obviously it's going to be foreign retailers that are shipping it to the United States that have Chinese made goods. Okay. Canada, Mexico. Like, how is this, where are we at? How is this impacting e-commerce specifically?
So this would be, so now we're talking Mexican and Canadian made goods coming in.
Yep, because the tariffs are back on. We're calculating it. Yep.
Again, we're still at $800 de minimis for now. So coming into the U.S.,
so very, very little impact right now.
Impacting. Yep. But the interesting thing that's happening now is we've got retaliation happening. So China is now retaliating, but it's mainly on agricultural goods. Because I think most of, it's kind of a one-way street for the most part as far as, them exporting versus importing. I don't think they buy a lot. Especially
e-commerce. They do not buy a lot from other countries when it comes to e-com.
Right. So I don't see that one being massively disruptive, any of the retaliation they're doing. And it's all agricultural too, which isn't really e-commerce. If we look at Mexico, the TBD on what their retaliation looks like, supposedly something later today we're going to hear. We'll just kind of wait and see.
But also not a ton of, there is some e-commerce into Mexico, but let's say that they did. What if they raised it to, what if they did have a retaliation of additional 25% tariff? How would that impact e-commerce sellers into Mexico?
It really wouldn't still, because they have a simplified tariff system where anything under $1,000, $1,000 USD, has a kind of flat all-in rate. So unless they change that, now if they change that,
but that's not U.S. specific.
No,
that's like a de minimis kind of thing. That's global. Doesn't matter what's coming into Mexico. So they would have to do a U.S. specific kind of change.
It's like a blended tax and duty.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they change that. Who knows?
I would too. And so my assumption is whatever they put in place is probably only going to impact those shipments over $1,000. But TBD. We'll find out. Canada they're kind of rolling out their plan that has no details on it, which is $50 billion worth of goods now, and then in 21 days they're going to roll it out even more. But I still have yet to see the specifics on exactly what type of goods they are. So let's say they do impact consumer goods,
which Trudeau said they would. I don't know in what phase.
And so if that's the case, Canada has a low de minimis. That's the big one.
So that's actually what the irony would be, that U.S. retailers would be hurt even more than they are right now, because Canada first would raise their tariffs. Already has a low de minimis. They're paying the tariffs, and the stuff coming in, selling into the U.S. still has a wave de minimis. The de minimis is still in effect. So,
yep. If you think about the experience,
a bit of the opposite impact, I think that the administration is trying to have. obviously they're wanting to drop that de minimis, but for e-com it would be complete opposite.
Yeah, and just to be clear on that too, this would be for U.S. retailers selling U.S. made goods into Canada.
Correct.
So it won't impact. I don't anticipate it impact. If you're importing stuff from another country and then reselling it up into Canada, shouldn't impact those goods. It's just if they're U.S. made goods you're selling into Canada, you'll have sticker shock. Either if you're collecting duty and tax at checkout, that cost will go up, or if you're still sending it DAP or DDU where it's collected upon delivery, you're going to have more upset customers in Canada.
Yeah, and again, for the U.S. retailer, they're competing against companies that are all over the world, and it's not reciprocal for them yet.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So it'll be interesting to watch. So it's not going to have as big of an impact on e-commerce as it will on other industries, but
it's going to, though.
It's going to.
It's just, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of Howard. And let's see when he decides that he's got the systems in place to make this happen. Anything else you want to that we need to touch on that we forgot today?
Man, it's a fluid thing. It's constantly changing. So we'll watch the headlines and have some more updates soon.
All right. We'll be back. All right. Thanks, Aaron.